Alrighty, we're continuing Torah Samach 60. So we've explained that there are paths in Torah that have sorry, incredible insight in them, that avail incredible insight into Torah. And it's not possible to come to this kind of insight unless a person has a great amount of wealth. And to come to this wealth is by a person lengthening and widening his days, the kedusha, additional kedusha every day, as much as he can. Now, this is called arichos yamim. It's called longevity. It's called oldness, zikna. That's the wallet that enables a person to have the ashiras the kedusha. Now, to get to this oldness, you need yira. And we explained that the yira, the profession of the yira is sorry, when it applies to the way a person ponders the greatness of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and the way a person learns Torah. So you learn Torah by year, and where a person's belongings, person's money, that the year should be there as well. And to Revelation, we have a photographic material going on here. The way to get the galus of year, the expression of the year, the revelation of year, is through pkidas hakaras, the making barren women bear, enabling women that were barren to make them bear, children. Pkidas hakaras. So now comes the question. You see, you notice that the Torah is like backwards. First of all, what is the end? What brings to the end? One step before, one step before, one step before. So the things are, how do you bring about pkidas hakaras? How do you bring about that women who could not bear children are able to bear children? This is done, we learned, by the way that by wakening people up, because the people who are sleeping their days, they're learning, they're davening, whatever it is, but the truth is that it's done without seicha, without moichin, without ponim. They're not face to face with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, as it were. Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't have nachas from that. So the people get that state either through chas v'chalila averos and stuff like this, or food that wasn't, fully purified for human consumption. And that causes people to serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu without seichel, without intellect, without awareness. So the davar doesn't go up. And when you wake them up, we also went through this inyan that you have to cloak and mask, as it were, their face, their intellect, their hidden thing that will wake them up. You have to close it through with sipurim isis, with tales, with stories. So there are various inyonim about how some people need to hear stories. Some people need to hear Torah, a lower Torah that has that in it is cloaked and malubish a much higher Torah, and so forth and so on. The Rebbe explains that there are 70 facets to the Torah. It's called Shivim Shonim, 70 years. So the stories from the 70 years, you call like stories within time. Shivim Shonim. Shivim Shonot means that the 70 facets of the Torah. It says not, and we said that the reason why do you have to cloak it? Why do you have to be malbish, the seichel, the ora seichel, or upon him? You have to malbish with stories. So we said that, first of all, so that the lights, the sudden light shouldn't, blind them. We also said that the chitzonim that are holding on to them now will not let them out. When once the light comes out, they'll become blinded, and chitzonim will, become, with demionis, with all kinds of imaginations and things that they already know or whatever it is. Because with great light comes also, with confusion and fantasies and whatever it is. So that's the reason why it has to be cloaked. Now we also learned that there are some people that fell from all the 70 faces, all the 70 facets, completely fell off. And that kind of person cannot be woken up through sipurim of that are within the 70 years. Such a person needs to be woken up through stories of shanim kadmonis, of yesteryears, of stories which be on time. That is, that's Prinas Atik. This whole Torah is saying that in order to get to this inyan, this paths in Torah that enables you great observation in Torah, you need to do what we're doing here is Tikunei Atik, the rectification of the kosher, which is usually, you understand, that some tzaddikim can do. How can I do it? He says, no, the thing is that you need to widen your days in Kedusha every single day. That's shaykh to everyone. Add a little more, maybe be awakened to make the brachot more, the chavana, learn a little bit, when you don't feel that well, maybe, push yourself a little bit, whatever it is that you can, it's like Prinas Atik is the Prinas. How can Prinas Atik be effective for somebody that fell from everything? Because all the 70 facets receive from that Shanim Kadmonius, this Atik, this everything receives from there. And now we're going to go to Seif Zayin. Atik is the Kesser. Atik is the Kesser. That's beyond time and place. So we said there is Chesed and there is Rav Chesed. There's spheres in a level which is called Zer Anpin, small faces. And then there's Atik, which is the long face, Arich Anpin. There are spheres there. So you have to get the Chesed in the Zer Anpin, which is our reality, as it were. It's just Chesed. But the Chesed in the level of Atik, of Keser, is called Rav Chesed. It's overabundance of Chesed. That we explained that this is what Mordechai invoked when the Gzer of Haman in Purim was to Chas Chalila do whatever he wanted to do. And Haman was a great warlock. He was a chashiv and astrologer, and he was Moshech the Gezerah from the level of the 50th gate of Tumah. Now, we only received 49 gates of Bina with Moshe Rabbeinu. If Am Yisrael would have remained in Egypt for a little longer, they would have fallen to the 50th gate of Tumah, which is apicorsis, which is heresy, they would have never come out of Mitzrayim. So Mordechai also, and Haman built a gallows, treated as high 50 amos, 50 cubits. This is a remez for the 50th gate of Tumah. And so Mordechai had to bring about the Geula from Osid Lavai, from Mashiach, from the time of Mashiach, the 50th gate of Kedusha. That's why Mordechai, the name Mordechai, has the equal number in Gematria of Rav Chesed. Because Rav Chesed is already 50th gate. It's Atik. Because from Zerampin, he couldn't, the 49th gate, he couldn't bring a Geula from there. Now, when, thank you very much. When a person is Osik to awaken people, he has to be very wary, very careful, not, to teach Talmidim that are not Hagunim, that they're not the way they're supposed to be. Dishonest Talmidim. So he wouldn't be affected from their malice, their evil. Now, we will have to very soon see, how can you know who is Hagun, who is not Hagun? How can we tell? Anybody who teaches a dishonest student will not be Gehenna, falls in Gehenna. And it says, anybody that teaches Talmid She'eino Hagun, Kilu Zurek Even Markulis, like he's throwing a stone to Avodah Zarah, which is called Markulis. There was an Avodah Zarah, which is called Markulis, that the form of worship of this particular Avodah Zarah was by throwing stones, making like piles of stones before it. Asking me, I don't know. What do I understand in Avodah Zarah? So even if a person went and took a stone and wanted to cast a stone at the Avodah Zarah at Markulis, a b'derech of derision, like throwing stones at something in order to put it down. Nevertheless, it's chai because that's the way that one worships the Markulis, by throwing stones at it. That's the avodah. So that's why that's why it is not. Chazal said it is not. A person is not. Cannot write film on parchment that is made of animal which is not kosher. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the behema itself has to be behema that was shechted, but it doesn't need to be. There's just to be a kind of behema that, if it were to be shechted, then it's kosher. And but you can write it on the parchment made out of behema tmeo. As it is said, "L'man tieh teres Hashem b'ficha." So the teres Hashem should be in your mouth. What is l'man tieh teres Hashem b'ficha? What does it mean? Mina mutar leficha, that which is allowed to your mouth. You have to write the Torah only on parchment that is made of a kind of animal that is allowed for you to consume. And when you are learning with somebody else. This is an aspect of writing. My tongue is a quill of a swift scribe. It is being engraved and written on the heart of the tongue. Ushekosov kasvem aluach libecho. Okay, and that's why it's necessary that shelo dvarim nichtavim al b'chinas or bo beheimat me'ah. The one that you teach, because your tongue of teaching is like a quill of a scribe, and whoever it is that you're teaching, you're like writing on him, like somebody's writing on film on parchment, and it says the parchment has to be for behemoth kosher, it has to be a kosher behemoth. So if you write on non-kosher behemoth, obviously it's not kosher. So that's why you have to be very careful to write on, not to write on or behemoth male. Hainu tolmid she'eino hogan. Another dishonest student. Okay. First of all, we have to understand what constitutes a talmid she'eino hogan. What is it? How do you define it? And also, we have to understand how can you tell? You know. So, first of all, talmid she'eino hogan is somebody that is not really interested in the Torah in order to keep it, to do it and to keep it. Lilmo the lamed lishmo lasas ulkaim, as the Rebbe was saying. He's not interested. So, yeah, this is like interesting, let's see. Just want to hear because it's a chokhmah, I'll be able to whatever. I heard once a beginning of a lecture by a psychology professor that claimed that Rabbi Nachman is her teacher. And she proceeded to say things which are like, what? It was nothing. So tikkun of the tzaddik, whatever he was mamshich to her, I don't know what Rabbeinu is doing with her. But nevertheless, that's shot to somebody that wants to take Rabbeinu. I was also once in a shir that where was in Yerushalayim in the street, and all kinds of people coming there, and the person that was his place invited me to come. There was his place. He was learning Likutey Moharan, and the way that he was learning it was like a jam session. He took the words and whatever came to his mind, he would say about it, and it had absolutely no negia to the Torah itself. I mean, this is what's written. It's like art form, whatever. It's like a shtus and vavolim is. I just yes. It's the Talmud is somebody who is not interested in learning it in order to keep it. For this to bring you to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, that is not to say that every one of the Talmidim has to start out as a Talmid Hagan. He can start as Talmid She'eino Hagan, okay? But then, after a while, suddenly he wakes up. He goes like, whoa, there really is an oil of Haba, right? Suddenly he wakes up and he says, whoa. So in other words, so how can you tell? Who is Hagun, who is not Hagun? Who can you tell Torah before? Who you shouldn't be telling before? So this is Rabbeinu explains this now. Rabbeinu says, it's not possible for a human being to be careful that dishonest students will not learn from him. So for this, Rabbeinu gives a technique. How do you do it so it'll work? צריך שיהיה לימודוי ללמוד וללמד ולשמור ולעשות. That when you teach, obviously also when you learn, the limud should be, your kavanah should be that you learn and you teach in order to keep, in order to do, in order to perform. That's the kavanah. You don't teach in order to show people how smart you are. You don't teach people in order to whatever. You do it in order. In other words, you should learn with your student or your fellow friend in such a way, as if you made him, as if you gave birth to him, as if you gave metzias to him. What does it mean? What do you mean you make him? What do you mean you made him? You make him a divrei Torah. Because when you teach somebody halacha, that first of all, the Gemara says, anybody who teaches Torah to his friend, as if he's his father, he's given birth to him. Because he's a new person. And not only that, so it's not just about him, but it's also when you teach it to somebody who keeps it, it's as if, and he goes ahead and he does whatever you taught him, it's as if you did it. You did the mitzvah. Kilasoi means that you did whatever it is that you taught. You taught it to somebody else and he took it somewhere and he incorporated it into his life and worked with it. Anybody who teaches his friend Torah as if he made him. He says about Avraham Avinu, it's a nefesh asher also b'charan. And the souls that they made in Arvav, in Sarah, and the souls that they made in Haran, what in the souls they made while they're making souls, they taught them Torah, the Mazim Tshuva. That Avraham, says Rashi, is teaching the men, and Sarah is teaching the women. And so this is good, like they made them. Because once a person learned Torah, he's a different being altogether. It's a very, very important concept for us to understand. That when you teach other people and the divrei Torah that you speak to them are remembered, and it's as if you are actually doing divrei Torah. The mitzvahs that you're teaching them, the halachas that you're teaching them, and they do it, it's like you did it. You have the schos of that mitzvah. When a person learns in this kind of kavanah, the Hashem is HaKadosh Baruch Hu guards him. That the words will not be written in the mind of a dishonest student. You forget it. Mm-hmm. Gives you a lot of motivation to teach people. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's right. Absolutely right. The one thing, there's a principle here that we need to understand. That we feel like, we are the chefza, we are reality. And we go through various things. You go through, pleasant things and not so pleasant things, and we learn things, and we daven, and we give tzedakah, and it's just we are the main thing, and it's just we're experiencing various things that we do but we basically remain the same as we were. But this is not true. This is not true. The thing is that everything that a person does changes him. Everything that you do changes you. Your choices They change you throughout your life. It's very easy when you see somebody. I had a visit a couple of days ago from a friend that from my childhood, and I knew him from when I was 3 years old. 3. Yeah, it's like I grew up with him. It was like and he a different path. And he was a sailor. He was a first officer in a merchant marine, and he went through a course of becoming a captain. Of a ship, and then he didn't go through that. Every person goes through whatever. There's a whole story, not a whole book about every single person. But I remember and I took a look at him, and I see, his life. You can see, that's and other people that that if you happen to know some people that that you have family, whatever it is that is maybe not shamatah mitzvah, so whatever it is, you can see that people eat what they cook. Everything that you do in your life, it changes you. And not only this, here when you're also in Divrei Torah, this is also psychologically or whatever it is that. But Divrei Torah and Tefillah, once you daven at Tefillah of Shachris, I put on film today, and you daven Shachris, you were changed inexorably. You were changed completely. You're a different bria. It feels to you like, just as before davening, as after davening. But you're completely transformed. You are a different person. You with an excellent. Okay, because our measurement is, we're very gashmisdik. We need to feel. We need to feel that just to believe it's very difficult. But spiritually, and when you understand that, you daven differently. Every single word of Torah that you learn changes you. How does it change you? You become more godly. You become more godly, divine. Divrei Torah and Tefillah are aimed at making flesh and blood a divine being here in this world. So how much more when you teach it? But the thing is that if somebody learns Torah and is dishonest, and he has absolutely no intention to keep it whatever he's learning, it's just like a habit. I want to be an expert. There was a professor for Kabbalah. He used to teach Kabbalah in university, but and the way he taught Kabbalah was to prove to anyone that it was not true. I mean, and he knew everything. He knew Kisvei Arizal, knew the whole thing. I mean, he was a low life, behave, whatever it is. So you take Divrei Torah and use it for something else. It's causing not only this, but anybody who teaches such a student, falls out in that evil of the student, affects the teacher. So, but when you're teaching in such a way with the kavana, to learn and to teach, to keep and to do. So there's something in the words. There's a quality in whatever it is that you're teaching that it just glides over, the heart of the Talmud, which is not dishonest, like a water off a duck's back. Doesn't affect him. And we said before, the heart and the seichel if the heart is not there, the seichel is not there. Things that you don't care about, you don't remember. When you have you have a when you learn anything, if your learning is without an emotional aspect, you can't learn. Some people say that the reason why autistic people on the spectrum have difficulties learning is because they don't the emotion, the feelings, the things that causes them to feel certain things, whatever it is different. They're unable to, and since they don't experience emotionally whatever it is they're learning, they don't learn. It's not that they're dumb. They're not dumb. They can be geniuses. It has nothing to do with that. It's like, to understand it, you can teach a child that if you touch a hot pan, it's going to burn. You can teach him 1,000 times, but nothing's going to teach it to him like touching a hot pan. Why? What's the difference? He knew already. You told him 1,000 times. Because now there's a feeling, now there's emotion. It causes an imprint. That imprint says it that emotion makes the theoretical learning, something that's imprinted on you. That's what I mean. Imprinted on the luchas of your heart. But when you're learning in a way that the whole kavod of learning is in order to keep and to do, and to teach and to learn and to teach and to keep and to do, that kind of emotion does not connect with the Talmud She'eino Hogun. His heart is not in there to teach and to learn and to do and connect, and keep. That's not his kavanah. So your emotions don't his emotions are not being awakened. It will not be imprinted in his memory. Which Baruch Hu is guarding you, so he does not remember because obviously, if when you teach somebody and the mitzvahs that he does are considered, to your schos, you can understand what happens if somebody Talmid She'eino Hogun goes and uses what you taught him, something which is improper. That's the Chalila. You can understand how much damage that will do.
Are you saying if you teach a student Torah, he doesn't get emotionally involved in it, he won't learn it?
I will say differently. He will learn to the extent that he is emotionally involved. It's not all or nothing. It's gazillion degrees of gray. You're more involved, you learn more. You're less involved, you learn less. It's sliding scale. And when a person is doing in order to wake people up through Sipurei Maisis, he also has to have the same kavanah. The Rav has this kavanah, and the Talmud should have this kavanah. It says the quote unquote the idle chat, the chat of Talmidei Chachamim needs learning. Now that everything that is needed, all the kavanah, the lishma that you need for learning, also have to be when you speak to people. When you speak b'chlal, there was very interesting. There was in Yerushalayim, when you go up the I don't know if the road now, but we used to go up to Yerushalayim on Givat Shaul over there. There was a big building that was built by Maharil Diskin, big Talmid Chacham and a tzaddik in the beginning of the 20th century, and he was the Rav of Yerushalayim, And he took, after the First World War, there were many orphans, many Jewish orphans. And the First World War, I'm talking about the second, the First World War. And these kids, were taken by the missionaries, whatever it is that was. So he built this orphanage. It says, Beis Yitzhak Diskin, it's called. Very famous in Yerushalayim. And many, many children grew there. Not just people that were saying, but also when with family that broke apart, whatever it is, and the children had nowhere to go, they went there. It was an amazing act of chesed. By the way, I mean this shares Leila Nishmas of Uri Lopolyansky that passed away yesterday. He is the founder of Yad Sarah. He passed away yesterday. It was a big-ish chesed. So, to get back to the story in Yerushalayim, after the years of Mario Diskin, the Rav of Yerushalayim was Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. He was a Talmud of Mario Diskin, and they had a deal in the Gabe, on Purim, who went to a Kriyas Megillah. That when do you read the Megillah? So in all the cities which are outside, regular cities outside of Yerushalayim, of any city that was surrounded with walls in the day of Yeshua ben Nun, you read in 14th of Adar. But the cities that were surrounded with walls during the days of Yeshua, they read on the 15th of Adar. But they had a deal to when Yerushalayim obviously was surrounded with a wall, so you read in the 15th. And the question was, until when does the area considered Yerushalayim? That you're at the 15th, and from that place on, you're in the 14th. So each one had his own shita. He brought, kanrayas, all kind of proofs to his shita, and so forth, so on. Rabbi Chaim Sonnenfeld said that Givat Shaul is bevadai Yerushalayim, the Indian of Purim. Afterwards, there's an argument, but until then, it's bevadai that. It used to be quite far from from the city, from the old city. So they said, how do you know? So he said because his Rebbe, Maril Diskin, said when he bought the plot, to build the Beis Yisoimim, he told him, I was zeicher to buy a piece of land in Yerushalayim. So the Sicha, if this was not considered Yerushalayim, Leinian, when do you read the Megillah, Maril Diskin wouldn't have said in Yerushalayim. Being that he said, I bought a lot of land in Yerushalayim, means that this is Yerushalayim. So the Sicha, just from the idle talk, as it were, the Chachamim, you need to learn, you need to understand. Rabbi Yochanan knew that Maril Diskin did not say anything in zins, anything in vain. Everything he said was so if he said, I bought a piece of land in Yerushalayim, means this is considered Yerushalayim. That's what we call Sichon Shel Talmid Chachamim, the chat of Talmidei Chachamim, Tzrichin Limud, you have to learn it. Everything you need to the limud, you also tzrichin gam l'sichosei, which is what sichot. The Sipurim Maisis, it looks like a idle chatter, as it were. No, Sipurim Maisis, it's not Boba Maisis, it's not Chas v'Chalila. This is, it's amazing teachings. This says in Yecheskel, v'aleu l'tshuva. In Yecheskel, it says, "V'aleu ze b'chinasichas Talmid Chacham." Yecheskel describes what's going to be the time when Beis Hamikdash, the third Beis Hamikdash will be built. And it says, Maya mi Beis Hashem yetzer, and a brook will flow out, will come out of Kodesh HaKodeshim, from Holy of Holies. And it'll begin, the Gemara says, like Karnei Hagovim, as thin as the antennas of locusts. Just, tiny, and it'll become wider and wider and wider. It goes until it goes out of the Beis Hamikdash, becomes wider, and at the end, when it comes out, you can only stand by your knees, and then it becomes like a whole river. It's going to reach the entire Eretz Yisrael. Now, this is water that will come out of Beis Hamikdash, and Yechezkel says that along that river of water, there'll be growing trees. And they says these trees, their fruits will be a medicine, an antidote for anything, any sickness in the world. Even the leaves, that's the cheapest part of the tree. Even the leaves will have a segula to heal. And then we say, to heal what? This is what we are going to learn here. So these trees will never wither, and the leaves will never fall down, and they will keep on every month bringing new fruits constantly, because obviously this is a miraculous, phenomenon, because the water comes from the Kodesh HaKodeshim. That's the way it's going to be. So he says, "Va'aleyu letrufa," Yechezkel says, and the leaves of that tree will be for healing, for medicine, trufa. Va'aleyu, the Gemara says, ze sichas Talmid Chacham. That's what the fruit of Talmid Chacham is, the Torah that he learns, and the leaves are the sicha, the chat of Talmid Chacham with you. Chazal on this pasuk, Va'aleyu lo yibol. And in Tehillim it says, what is talking about somebody who's learning Talmid Chacham? He says, Vayak es shatul palgemayim, a tree that is planted, on palgemayim, and is strong and nothing's going to move him. Va'aleyu lo yibol, and the leaves of that tree of Talmid Chacham will never wither. Afilu sichas Talmid Chacham tzrichad limud. Even sichas, just a chat of Talmid Chacham, you have to learn what does it mean, because it doesn't go in vain. V'zeu letrufa, v'aleu letrufa. What does trufa mean? He says, okay, trufa means a medicine, means antidote for something. It's a something that can help with a certain illness or whatever. But Chazal, but in Yechezkel does not say what. The truth of what? Heal what? What are the leaves going to be good for? What kind of condition will the leaves are going to go good for? And this is, in the Gemara, there's a machlokes. They said, if he didn't say specifically what is it good for, it means that in the word trufa, already, there is a remez what it is good for. So there's a machlokes in the Gemara, and it says "Ulishon trufa is lehatir peh." Trufa is the letters lehatir peh, to untie a mouth. Trufa, trupe, latir peh. So everybody agrees that the leaves will have will be auspicious to untie a mouth, certain kind of mouth. We said before, what talmid you can teach? How you teach Torah? Only on something on the behemoth that is mutar l'picha, is allowed to your mouth. This is mutar l'picha, because when a person chat, that's for him ISIS. Shem lilmod v'lamed lishma sos kanal, as we said before, that you learn in such a way, with the kavanah to teach and to learn, to keep and to do. As a nishma mitalmidim she'enam agunim, then you're being kept from talmidim that are not honest. And what you're left with, mina muta bepicha, only talmidim that is muta bepicha, that is actually that kosher talmidim, as it were. As we say, mina shekotvim tefillin or be'atmeo, as we say, kanal. So it comes to say like this: mina muta bepicha kanal is, in other words, that the person should not teach a dishonest student. Should this he is a dishonest student is a bechina of a parchment is made of be'emet me'er. However, that's which is allowed to you. Parchment is made from a behemoth that is a kosher kind, is Talmud Hagun. This is how Kodesh Baruch Hu makes sure that you are being saved from teaching Mishon Hagonim. Ve'aleu, in other words, Aleu, this is Sipurei Maisis of the Tzaddik, is like a limud. In other words, they are in order to teach, to learn, and to teach, to keep, and to do. And the tzaddik is zeicher to trufa. Then you're zeicher to trufa. The tzaddik is zeicher to trufa. What does it mean? In other words, he's being saved and safeguarded from talmidim that are dishonest, that are not improper. That Hashem will continue next week. So this Maisa is as you can already see, we're going like step after step after step, and it becomes, so complex. And so, but the thing is, that's the reason why when we learn, I always like do a little chazara, what we learned until now, so that we'll be able to keep a certain continuity, so when we find, because it gets so complex, you have to actually wrap your mind around these concepts. Something is writing film, it's mutar beficha, is allowed in your mouth. So you have to retell it until finally it sits. And once it sits, then you can see the whole Torah the way it's supposed to be. Hashem should help us with Hashem should be Shabbos. Now, there's a old Shabbos Shmois, at the beginning of Shovavim. It's a very, very interesting time. There's something which they called SAD, seasonal something depression. And the further a person gets from the equator, the deeper the syndrome is. That there is a bechina of a tkufa of Tishrei, the tkufa of Nisan. In between the tkufa of Tishrei, which is the winter, and the tkufa of Nisan, there are like in between. It's not yet summer, and it's no longer winter, or it's no longer winter and it's not yet summer. And these kind of this twilight zone kind of it brings a person to a certain sleepiness, kind of like, I just want to lie in bed and not get out and leave me alone, and I want to talk to nobody. It's just like But the thing is,
all year long,
yeah, but specifically, in those. But now the thing is, it's not just those times. In the periods of time a person goes through this, you should know that it's also a time to ask yourself questions. Who am I? Where am I going? What's the story with me? Where am I going to? What is the thing that's bothering me now? What's the thing that I'm supposed to work on now? Because there are certain questions that, in the darkness, yes, there's sleep, but there's also dreams. So that's the time to explore, who you are. Now we're going we're going into the Golos, right? Now we're diving into the darkness. So that's the time, Shovavim is a time for Kedusha Sabris, whatever it is, B'ezrat Hashem will be Zocher, B'ezrat Hashem. Sure, I mean, it's the parshas of Shmois, Vayera, until Mishpatim, all the parshas. This is the B'ezrat Hashem will have good Shabbos, and I'm let me just stop recording this.